Ceann Comhairle, when I asked the Taoiseach just before Christmas about holding an inquiry into what happened in banking, he was very reluctant to agree that there should be such an inquiry. And he tells us today now that he has given it, and the government have given it, careful consideration. That is true. You have given it very careful consideration. And you have come up in the face of the Labour Party motion that is before the House tonight with a very cleverly designed amendment, but an amendment that is calculated to make this an inquiry in name only, to keep it firmly behind closed doors, to drag it out for as long as possible, and to exclude political accountability. What the Labour Party was proposing and what the Fine Gael Party was proposing in their proposals was essentially a two-stage process. One which would involve specialist investigation, which would establish a book of evidence type of document, which would then be the subject of examination by an Oireachtas committee. What you have proposed in your amendment is not a two-stage process, but a process which is 3, arguably 4 stages long, designed to drag it on for as long as possible. Minister Gormley, we are told over the last couple of days, and I have the statement made here by Senator Boyle, that Minister Gormley was putting to you a few principles that the Green Party had agreed on, that the inquiry would be public, open and have Oireachtas involvement, quoting directly from him. This inquiry that you're proposing is not public, it's going to be held in private. It's not open, it's going to be conducted behind closed doors, and it has only a minimal amount of Oireachtas involvement. If Minister Gormley thinks he has got a compromise, it is a compromise which replaces his call for a public inquiry with a concession of 2 private inquiries instead. This is totally deficient. First of all, as I've said, it is 3 stages, arguably 4, if you include the one where the Governor of the Central Bank will be reporting on his own institution. It will be dragged out. I know you have dates in it, but if you take the Commission on Investigation, for example, it's going to be set up in June. Then you have the summer holidays. You say it's going to report within 6 months. I think we can safely predict that the first report from that Commission of Investigation will be to seek additional time. And by the time that Commission of Investigation eventually comes to reach conclusions, we will have, as we had in the Murphy report incidentally, and in the Ryan report, we will be told, well, we have to await until persons who are named or identified in the report have an opportunity, have seen the draft and have an opportunity of responding to it, all of which, Taoiseach, will put it safely beyond the next general election, which is where you want to put it. And in case you didn't get it there, you have amazingly excluded yourself and in your previous role as Minister for Finance and your department from it. These reports, for example, we're told, according to this amendment you've produced, will consider the international, the social and the macroeconomic environment which provided the context for the recent crisis in the banking sector. But no mention of the political environment, no mention of the governmental environment, no mention at all of the role of the Department of Finance or of the Minister for Finance, namely yourself, when you were in that capacity. And the other issue, Ceann Comhairle, and I want to ask the Taoiseach specifically as to why the Department of Finance and Minister for Finance has been excluded from the remit of this so-called inquiry. But why, for example, does it say that this will investigate banking up to September 2008? What does up to September 2008 mean? Does that mean the 31st of August? And if it does, doesn't that not exclude the very month in which the government brought in the guarantee on the banking system? And if that is only a drafting mistake, then why would you in any event end it at September 2008, when several significant things happened after September 2008, which would now be outside the remit of this inquiry? For example, the phone call from Anglo-Irish Bank telling staff at the financial regulator in October, Taoiseach, that the bank is manipulating its balance sheet and that the figures that they had were not real numbers. This amendment that you have proposed to the Labour Party motion tonight is a dodge. It is an attempt to replace what we are looking for, what Fine Gael are looking for, what I believe the public is looking for, what the Governor of the Central Bank was looking for, what most responsible opinion is looking for, and that is an inquiry into what happened to our banking system, that to be conducted openly and in public. And you're replacing that with a privately conducted, behind closed doors, 3 or 4 stage exercise that will be dragged out, dragged on, until you get the other side of a general election.
Please.
Well, first of all, I can correlate. Nobody has proposed a tribunal-style inquiry, so the Taoiseach is trying to shoot down something that hasn't been proposed at all. What the Labour Party proposed was an Oireachtas inquiry along the lines of the Dirt inquiry, and to support that, we published a bill to deal with the Abbey Lara thing. We published a bill to deal with the Abbey Lara problem. That was the purpose of it, to give an Oireachtas committee, the power to deal with that. Now, the Taoiseach hasn't told us, firstly, why the Department of Finance and the Minister for Finance has been excluded from the remit of what is being proposed. He hasn't explained to us why this inquiry is to be conducted in private. The last time he had an attempt at saying he wasn't too keen on the idea of an inquiry before Christmas, he told us he didn't want the time of officials and of people in the banking sector to be taken up with having to deal with an inquiry in these times. I mean, their time is going to be taken up dealing with these various 3 stages now, rather than having them conducted in public. You've given us no explanation as to why this should be done in private rather than in public. You have cited the precedent of the commissions of the commissions of investigation into the various, the Ryan report and the Murphy report. Those were appropriate commissions of investigation. They were dealing with sensitive matters involving individuals. That's what the commissions of investigation legislation was about. The type of thing, for example, if somebody was assaulted in a Garda station or injured in a Garda station, that could be investigated by a commission of investigation. This is public business, Taoiseach. This is business that affects every single taxpayer in the country. People who will have to be paying for years to come for the failings of what happened in the banking system. And the Irish public are entitled to have this inquiry conducted in public so that they can form their own conclusions, can draw their own conclusions, and see it carried out as a public exercise. You haven't explained, Taoiseach, why it is to be conducted in private, why the Department of Finance is excluded, and neither have you addressed the issue as to whether September 2008 is in or not in the terms of this proposal that you have before us, and if it is in, why then is the period after September 2008 excluded from it?